Hi everyone, today we are going to actually talk about the cooling measures as well as certain relaxation of the cooling measures and then how this will actually affect us and also how we can actually take advantage of it. So let's dive into it.
So during July, right, the government actually readjusted the seller stamp duty from originally 3 years to 4 years. So a lot of people will think that, why is there this adjustment? Maybe is it the price too high? Because usually when cooling measures come in and the government intervene, it's because the price goes too high. But is it really the case?
So if you actually look at the news back in 2nd of July, the HDB growth actually slowed further to 0.9% in Q2. And if we actually look at the private home prices, right, it says that it flattened further, only up by 0.5% in Q2. So actually, is the prices going up very high or is it actually stabilizing? Based on the news, it's actually starting to stabilize.
So for cooling measure like seller stamp duty, it's actually to curb flipping and not to affect the price too much. Because right now, I think government has seen a rise in terms of the sub-sale market percentage. So that's why right now they want to sell property the duration 1 more year later. So you can see from here, during 2010 to 2011, where they adjust the seller stamp duty, you can see this down arrow. The sub-sale market actually dropped. Right now, why they implement, you can see the rise of the sub-sale market to a 6.8%. And from here, right, you see, right, our government actually said, I think it's a bit too much. Change the seller stamp duty from 3 years to 4 years. I think this is what we see.
So actually, if we look deeper, right, why the government actually want to do it, if you look at something what we call the supply, back then in 2020 was actually during COVID period, which actually there's only 7,000 units being completed, which is quite little because why? During COVID, there was a disruption in terms of the construction and all the manpower. Okay, but eventually when 2021, when COVID was over, you actually see that the number of supply that come in started to increase. In fact, if you combine all of these, there will be almost 55,000 MOP unit by 2028. And if we actually also look at the private property supply, you see that the expected year of completion in 26, 27, 28, if you combine everything, it's almost another 30,000 plus units that go to TOP by 2028. So if you actually combine the HDB market as well as the private market, we're going to have a total of 86,300 units that are going to be the amount of supply that's going to be in the market. So the key question that we want to understand is that how are the market actually going to digest this amount of units? If we look in 2024, based on all these data, there was about 6,000 plus private residential units sold. There was also about 14,000 resale transactions, and then in sub-sale there's about 1,400 sub-sale. So if you plus everything together, it's a total of above 20,000 units for 2024, which is actually not as high as 80,000, which means we cannot actually consume all these units in 1 year. So why the government actually introduced this SSD is because that for every transaction that happens after this SSD has been announced, can I say likely most of the sellers will have to put off the selling for an extra year, which means during that year there will actually be lesser supply being released into the market because most sellers don't want to pay the seller stamp duty.
Yeah, if we sell within the seller stamp duty at the last year, it will incur a 4%. So sometimes it will discourage sellers to take action during that time. Mostly we'll finish the seller stamp duty period to start to sell. For the seller stamp duty, right, usually at the last year it's actually 4%. A lot of homeowners will be very reluctant to sell to incur a 4% because it's actually quite a huge amount. And unless the profit is too huge, they will just come into the market to sell. Also a measure to remove speculation.
Okay, so actually if you look at the supply timeline, actually after this cooling measure, how will it affect you as a homeowner? Example, if you look at the resale market, right, most of the time people want to sell when there's lack of supply. Why? Because when there's lack of supply but there's demand, can I say the prices will actually start to increase? So if you look at the timeline, those that bought in July 2025, they can only sell in 2029, right? Why? Because of the SSD. Most people will not want to pay the 4% SSD, so which means actually this period there will be a lack of supply. So the best time to sell is actually during this period. But again, of course, even if you buy today, right, we also cannot sell at this period. Why? Because we also do not want to incur the SSD. The best time is actually to buy as early as possible so that we can sell earlier and take advantage of this no supply situation.
As you also know, right, the government, they actually say that they might be considering relaxing this 15 months wait out period before 2027. But first, we must understand why is this measure implemented. It's because that point of time during the surge in the price of the HDB, a lot of first-time buyers don't have chance to buy a HDB because when you go into a HDB viewing, right, it's like 20, 30 see shoes outside the house. And the situation is every house is sold within 1 or 2 days. You don't have a chance on. And every house there is a COV. You can't really find any house that's no COV during that period. Actually, why? It's because for those people that sold their private home, right, they are exiting with a huge portion of cash. They can fully pay the house, and actually 50 to 100k above valuation, they doesn't matter to them. Because for them, it's just they want to find their right sizing, they are downgrading, they are finding their retirement home. So sometimes the price they don't really, even it's cash over valuation, it doesn't impact them too much. But for the first timer, we have a big cash tight. They got no chance. That's why this measure was put in place, which is why the government also said it's actually for the first timer, which you can see from here.
Of course, again, just to reiterate the point, why was it implemented? The key thing is actually to make the HDB resale market to be affordable, because at the end of the day, we also need to take care of the first-time buyers lah, and those people that may not have as much cash as those people that has private property and want to actually right size. Yeah, so that's why they implemented this. So of course, today's video, we also want to explain a bit what might actually happen after this 15-month wait out period is removed. So if we actually understand the situation, there are currently also maybe buyers that are waiting to enter. They are now currently maybe staying with their parents, staying with their children, or maybe renting, and they are looking to enter into the HDB market. Of course, when this 15-month wait out period is removed, can I say that a lot more people will start to enter the HDB market. And today, if you're a HDB owner and you see there's going to be a lot of demand for your unit, are you going to sell at a high price or a low price? Most likely you will sell at a higher price. So of course, once you get a good price for your HDB, can I say most of them maybe they will actually consider to upgrade. So they will upgrade to go to a private. And then again, because of all the upgraders coming from HDB, the private owners also might be able to get a good price for their private. And then of course, when they achieve a good price, they start to buy a bigger private, or they may actually choose to downgrade. And then when they downgrade, they'll become back into a buyer. And then this cycle continues.
So Dillon, I got a question for you. So you see, based on what you are saying, right, can I say that today, if I'm a home owner, should I sell my unit when the 15-month wait out period is removed?
Yes, actually it's a very good question, because a lot of people say that I must well wait, then I can sell high ma. But the key thing is that if you sell and you wait and you sell later when you sell high, right, can I say you also need to buy high, because in general all the prices are going to go up.
So Dillon, I got a question.
Okay.
So is it better for me if I'm a homeowner today, I should wait for the 15-month wait out period to be removed so that I can benefit from the high selling price?
So of course, if you wait, maybe you can get a higher selling price for your unit. But don't forget, even if you get a higher selling price, you actually have to buy at a higher price, because you sell high, also buy high ma. The key thing, right, how to take advantage. For example, today if you manage to sell your unit and buy something, then after you buy at this kind of prices, then the 15-month wait out period remove, can I say the price that you bought at, right, the price will actually go up, which means you might be actually sitting at a profit and benefit from this 15-month wait out relaxation. So this is something that you might want to consider if you are looking to take action.
So there are some data to show you that what happened when the government actually relaxed the cooling measure. For this 2017, right, they actually changed from the SSD from 4 to 3 years. What happened? The resale market actually grew for 3.4%, but actually not so much. Because for SSD, right, actually they don't really impact on the resale market. What you see, for the new launch market, actually it changed to almost 21% once the government relaxed the seller stamp duty. But Dillon, why?
Why? Okay, because like what you mentioned earlier, right, resale owners, they probably want to hold a longer time frame. So they will hold more than 4 years, no issue for that. But for maybe people who buy new launch, maybe most of them are investors. So they might thinking to actually sell within a shorter time frame to actually cash out the profit, because they're looking to gain profit and then to actually maybe go to another property or actually expand their portfolio. So there's a clear difference, but we can see that this SSD, like we mentioned earlier, is more targeted toward investors. Okay, so today we're actually maybe thinking whether you take action now or maybe wait and see, because you want to see how all this cooling measure actually will impact the property market. Feel free to actually reach out to us, because we actually have some research, right, that we might be able to help you in your decision making.
So once again, I'm Matthew.
I'm Dillon.
We'll see you soon.